sister. I cannot believe that you've had sciatica for like 5 or 6 years and you're just now asking me for help. That sounds awful. I'm sorry you're dealing with that, and I can absolutely help. There's 5 billion different ways to work with sciatica and try and help with that. A ton of different causes and issues that are resulting in sciatica. You're saying that you usually happen when you're like bending and lifting and doing that kind of stuff. So I'll show you some ways to work around that and kind of explain what's happening there. So sciatica is a nerve, it's a sciatic nerve that runs from our lower lumbar and our sacrum, kind of out both sides, down through our glute, all the way down our leg. Can be very painful. It is very painful, I'm sure. But what happens is we sit so much these days, most humans today, and so our glutes become very, very weak. And so most, especially bending and lifting stuff, we kind of defer that transfer, that weight bearing, lifting, all of that activation while you're lifting and strength should be coming from the glute, but in most people today, it's coming from the hamstring and the low back. We kind of like bypass our glute, which puts just a lot of strain on the lower back. And we often get, a lot of kind of tilt in the pelvis and arching this way, which is just compressing the spine and the lower back, which is putting pressure onto that sciatic nerve. So I'm going to show you some breathing exercises. There's thousands and thousands of videos on the internet on sciatica exercises and stretches and strengthening and stuff like that. What I don't ever see is breathing. So I'm going to show you some breathing exercises to try and help alleviate pressure off of your lower spine. And then what you really want to do is start strengthening your glutes and like isolating the glute to strengthen them so that you can start to learn to move more from the glute and put more of your intention and awareness in your glute to do the lifting as opposed to your back or your hamstrings. And kind of do that, especially for bending and lifting, is to master the hip hinge. So hinging at the hip as opposed to like kind of collapsing down is essential, but I'm not going to show you that in this video because I just want to focus on alleviating pressure off of your sciatic nerve and getting you out of pain first, and then kind of once you're out of pain there and you can breathe better and easier and move without pain, then we can start working on glute activation and the hip hinge. So I'll do that for you later, but so for now, you just want to work on some breathing exercises, which is mainly you want to learn how to breathe into your lower back. Most people breathe up here, right? And then as you kind of work on your breath more and more and you learn how to breathe with your diaphragm, a lot more people start to breathe down from the belly. Fantastic, absolutely. But even more importantly, you want to breathe into your lower back area. And as you're doing that, as you're breathing down there, you're expanding the area and you're kind of opening up the space between your vertebrae and creating more space for your spine to move and breathe easier. So I'll show you, I guess the most accessible way to do that is just laying on your back with your knees bent. So you want to have your knees bent, you're laying on your back, you want your head down flat. I'm just looking up so I can kind of see the camera, you can see my face. And when you're here, again, a lot of times people are going to be like this, where you can, oh wow, yeah, I can like reach all the way underneath. This is not ideal, right? We want to try and flatten that out as much as possible. So what you're going to do is rotate your pelvis up. You're going to tuck your pelvis towards your chin basically. As you're doing that, it's going to engage your core. And so while you're here, you're just going to take long, slow, deep breaths, but with your stomach engaged. So instead of breathing up into your stomach and letting your stomach expand, and if you noticed as I did that, my back arched, you want to keep your stomach engaged so that as you're breathing really deep, the air is going to go down into your back. So your stomach is still eventually going to rise up just a little bit, but my whole core is engaged, and so instead I can't get any Yeah, I can't get underneath my lower back at all because as I'm breathing in here, my back is expanding down and I'm creating more space back there. So instead of crunching everything up this way and opening up here, I'm holding this down and I'm feeling my lower back expand out and along this way. And again, keep your head down, try and relax everything, keep that core nice and engaged. And it's all coming down here and then up. That's the most important thing. You want to start getting used to that. You want to play around with your pelvis because there's a point where you're going to feel your whole spine along the ground, and that's kind of where you want to be at. And just breathe here. As long as you can, as many rounds as you can. Long and slow breaths is the key there. Nice and controlled. As you get better at that, or do that for a few breaths, and then we're gonna come around to our stomach. I'm gonna start to come up into this like sphinx, cobra, up dog kind of a position, and you're gonna don't go up too high, right? Like we don't want to extend all the way up as we can. This right here might even be too much as it is. So if this is as far as you can come up, that's fine. If even just laying on your stomach, I don't know how bad your sciatica is. I've had clients with just laying down at all is painful in their sciatica. So I'm not sure if that's where you're at or not. But you kind of want to be in a position where you don't feel anything first, right? Or you want to start to come up, start to work your way up, and like if it's like, ooh, right there, I'm starting to feel it, stop here, right? Stop wherever you're just starting to feel it. So you just want to make sure that you're in the proper range. Like if you don't feel anything and you're doing it here, effective, definitely still effective, but you do want to have like just the slightest, like you're like, ooh, I'm feeling a lot there, then come down just a little bit. So you're just barely feeling it, or you're like right at the edge of being able to feel your sciatica is about to like start pinching or whatever. And once you're there, I'm just gonna come up here because it's more comfortable for me. You're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna take deep breaths into your lower back. So as your spine is kind of curved like this, we don't want it crunching. We're gonna take deep breaths, and so the vertebra are gonna slightly, and that's exaggerated, they're gonna start to expand and open up and relieve pressure off of the nerve. So you're gonna do the same thing. It can help keep your core active. Again, still hold the core, and as you're breathing in, you want the breath you don't want to push your belly down into the ground and lift up, but you want the air to go into your lower back. Right, so just sit here. If you can hear me breathing, I'm doing kind of like an Ujjayi type of a breath, just to help calm and relax everything. Definitely a good idea to do. Not necessary, especially if you feel like you're straining your throat or anything, trying to force a sound. You don't have to. You can breathe nice and light, nice and easy. If it's also difficult through the nose, nose breathing is by far the most ideal thing, but it also requires more diaphragmatic strength and whatnot to get the air that low. So if it's really hard, if you're like breathing with your nose and you feel like the air is like getting to like your rib cage and it's not even getting to your stomach, then open your mouth, breathe through your mouth just to get more air, more of a airflow down there for now until you get better at breathing through your nose. And just breathe just to get a nice steady stream of air down there to like really expand and open up the lower back. That's the key with sciatica, to get out of pain, right? There's a lot of strength training and stretches and exercises to do to prevent sciatica or to help with sciatica, but the first thing, the most important thing is just to get out of pain. And so to get out of the pain, use your breath to like really expand, create space in your lower spine. And then as that starts to open up, that'll train those muscles will start to open up, they'll start to wake up, you'll become more aware of those muscles. And then once you do start kind of doing more strength training, you'll have more awareness of those muscles, and it'll be a lot easier to kind of work with that. So that's just step number one. The next, I'll show you real quick one of my favorite stretches in general, kind of depending on how much pain you have, especially when you're extended that way. Is kind of just like a roll through, what is that? Upper, yeah, like upward facing dog, cobra kind of a thing. This is one of my favorite things to do. This coming up this high might be really difficult. So kind of stay wherever you are again. And definitely do this after you've done a lot of breathing, after you're feeling pretty relaxed there. But we're just going to roll through. So it might be easier to start on just sitting upright back this way. And you're just gonna bring your arms across and keep your body up and just roll all the way through this way. So as you're going through all of this, your whole body is going to be stretched and moved up along from the top of the hip up. And so it's going to relieve a lot of pressure and stretch just the entire torso core area. Fantastic. It feels wonderful. You feel a lot looser and better afterwards. That's one of my favorites. Another really good thing to do, moving your hips side to side. So like in a tabletop position, we go from the side so you can kind of see. So like from a tabletop position, just kind of dropping the hip side to side. It's gonna work that a lot, right? You have a lot of fascia, like a lot of sacral fascia down here from the lats, the traps, from all sorts of things, kind of connecting in towards the pelvis. And so the most that we can do to kind of loosen and move that up and create more space and movement, it's going to help relieve pressure off of that lower back. So both of those things, maybe start with this one, just kind of dropping your hips side to side and stretching that out. Keep the head up, keep this, chest and everything up so that the hip is really moving away from the shoulders. So maybe start with that. And once you get comfortable with that, you can start kind of adding in a little bit of a roll through here. Be great. And the final exercise that I have for you would just be a bit of a piriformis stretch. The sciatic nerve kind of runs through the piriformis. And so by relieving pressure off the piriformis, it can relieve pressure off of the sciatic nerve. Which, again, I don't know if that's necessarily your issue, but it doesn't hurt. Well, yeah, you'll see. So pigeon is like the most common piriformis stretch that you do in like most every yoga class, but it's also quite advanced and very difficult on the body, and most people are doing it wrong anyways. So there's no point in kind of forcing yourself into a position that's just going to be painful. And potentially not effective, especially if you're moving your hips in a way that's taking the stretch out of the piriformis and into something else. So the figure 4 laying down is one of my favorite ways to kind of get into the piriformis. So you're just going to cross, your foot over your knee and bring your knee up towards you. Reach through, grab onto the back of your hamstring, and you can use your elbow to push that knee open. All right, so you're just going to be pulling up this way. Again, relax your head. Nice and back and down. And this is going to really isolate the piriformis. If you're using a lot of upper body, if it's a lot of strength and stuff here or too much pulling, you can put this foot against a wall and just support yourself there. And then you use this hand and like really push it open. You really want to make sure that this is coming towards you. And the final thing in this position to like really pay attention to and be aware of is, again, the lower back. So if you're arching this way while you're doing it, that's not ideal. Or if you're like rolling up this way while you're doing it, again, not the most ideal, but probably the most common. Like people, especially if you have really tight hips, your hips kind of tend to come up off the ground when you're doing a lot of leg stretches, glute stretches. So if you're doing that, that's fine. And then just try and roll your spine down. So if you're like up this way, your hips are coming up, try and roll the spine down to flatten the spine out. And as you're doing that, keep your legs where they are. So you're like really pull the spine down in a way, and it's just gonna really intensify that stretch there. Or if you're up like this, then again, just try and engage the core and pull the lower spine down. So you want the spine nice and flat while you're doing this. So that's some breathing exercises, some kind of fascial stretching, and then the piriformis stretch to get you started with your sciatica. And yeah, so start there, work on those, do that, good God, and see how that goes. Let me know how that is, if that's helping at all. I can do different stretches, different exercises, breathing exercises. I've got a billion things for sciatica. See how all that goes, and if you're getting progress, then we can work on hinging at the hip and kind of activating your glutes more, be more effective while you're bending and lifting.